You keep smiling when something inside you wants to pull away. You say, "It's fine," when it is not fine. You agree before you even know what you feel. You become softer, quieter, easier to handle, just so no one has to face the truth of you. And little by little, without noticing, you start disappearing from your own life. This is not just about being kind. It is not just about being polite, peaceful, or emotionally mature. Sometimes, the person who pleases everyone is not living from love, but from fear. Fear of being rejected. Fear of being called difficult. Fear that if you disappoint someone, they will finally see you as unworthy of staying for. So you wear the mask. The understanding one. The helpful one. The one who never asks for too much. The one who can be hurt and still apologize for making the room uncomfortable. But here is the part most people never notice. The mask does not only hide your pain from others. Over time, it hides you from yourself. You begin to forget what you actually want. You stop trusting your own reactions. You mistake exhaustion for loyalty, silence for peace, and self-betrayal for goodness. And in this video, you will begin to see where that mask is suffocating you, and why the person you have been trying so hard to protect may be the very person you have abandoned. At first, people may praise you for it. They call you thoughtful, easy to be around, mature, a good listener, someone who never creates problems, someone who always understands. And part of you feels relieved, because for a moment, being needed feels almost the same as being loved. But deep inside, something quieter begins to ache. Because every time you adjust yourself to keep someone comfortable, you teach your nervous system a dangerous lesson. My truth is a threat. My needs are too much. My real feelings could cost me connection. So you learn to become acceptable. You laugh when something hurts. You stay available when you are tired. You answer messages even when your body is begging for silence. You swallow your opinion because disagreement feels like danger. You say yes, not because you want to, but because saying no feels like standing at the edge of abandonment. And this is where the mask begins to feel like your own face. You no longer know whether you are being kind or afraid. You no longer know whether you are choosing peace or avoiding rejection. You no longer know whether you are loving others or quietly begging them not to leave. This wound is invisible because it often looks beautiful from the outside. People see your patience, but not your resentment. They see your calmness, but not the tension in your chest. They see your generosity, but not the emptiness that follows when you give from a place that has nothing left. And the saddest part is this. You may start believing that this is who you are. Not a person with desires, boundaries, anger, preferences, and a voice. But a role. A presence shaped around everyone else's comfort. A life built around being chosen, while slowly forgetting how to choose yourself. Carl Jung called the social mask the persona. And the persona is not evil. You need it to move through the world. You need a way to speak at work, to behave in public, to adapt to different situations, to meet others without exposing every private part of your soul. But the wound begins when the persona stops being a bridge and becomes a prison. When you no longer use the mask to communicate with the world, but to survive the world. You become the version of yourself that receives the least rejection. The version that asks fewer questions. The version that never seems angry, never seems disappointed, never seems too sensitive, too intense, too honest, too much. And because this version gets approval, you start confusing approval with identity. You think, maybe this is who I am. But it is not always who you are. Sometimes it is who you had to become when being yourself felt unsafe. This is why people-pleasing can feel so confusing. On the surface, it looks like social harmony. But underneath, it can be a quiet separation from the self. You are present in the room, but absent from your own truth. You are accepted by others, but abandoned by yourself. And slowly, the inner voice grows weaker. Not because it died, but because every time it spoke, you trained yourself to silence it. The real danger is not that you wear a mask. The real danger is forgetting there is someone behind it. Someone who has preferences. Someone who has limits. Someone who feels anger for a reason. Someone who wants to be loved without performing emotional obedience. And perhaps the question is not, why am I so tired? Perhaps the deeper question is, how long have I been living as the person people reward, instead of the person I actually am? And once you begin living through the mask, your attention stops belonging to you. It starts orbiting other people. You study their tone, their silence, their facial expression, the speed of their replies, the small shift in their energy that tells you something may be wrong. Before you even know what you feel, you are already asking, did I upset them? Did I say too much? Should I fix this? Should I become easier? This is the hidden mechanism of people-pleasing. It is not peace. It is emotional surveillance. You are constantly scanning the room for signs of rejection, criticism, disappointment, or withdrawal. And because your body has learned to experience disapproval as danger, you do not simply want people to like you. You need them to stay regulated so you can feel safe. So you shrink the parts of yourself that create waves. Your honesty becomes softer. Your boundaries become negotiable. Your needs become delayed. Your anger becomes guilt. Your discomfort becomes a private burden you carry so no one else has to feel uncomfortable. And maybe the hardest part to admit is this: you did not lose yourself all at once. You lost yourself in tiny moments. The joke you pretended was funny. The apology you gave when you were the one hurt. The invitation you accepted while your whole body wanted rest. The opinion you buried because someone else sounded more certain. Each moment seemed small. But together, they built a life where everyone knew how pleasant you were, and almost no one knew who you were. And if this realization touches something you have lived, subscribe to this channel. Here, we speak about the things many people feel in silence, but almost no one knows how to explain. Because your exhaustion is not a personality flaw. It may be the evidence of how long you have been performing safety instead of living truth. And once you see that, the mask can no longer feel innocent. The deeper pain begins when choosing yourself feels like hurting someone else. You cancel a plan because you are exhausted, and guilt enters before relief can. You say no to a request, and suddenly your mind becomes a courtroom, searching for evidence that you are selfish. You express a need, and a quiet panic rises, as if honesty has placed the relationship in danger. This is what happens when self-abandonment becomes familiar. Your system starts treating your own needs like intruders. You can understand everyone else. You can forgive everyone else. You can make space for everyone else's wounds, moods, timing, confusion, and excuses. But when your own soul asks for space, rest, respect, or truth, you feel guilty for having limits. And that guilt is not proof that you are wrong. Sometimes guilt is just the withdrawal symptom of no longer betraying yourself. Because when you have spent years being the available one, the easy one, the one who adapts, people may become accustomed to a version of you that never interrupts their comfort. And when you begin to change, even gently, that change can feel like a threat to the old arrangement. Not because you are becoming cruel, but because you are becoming real. This is why choosing yourself can feel wrong, even when it is the first honest thing you have done in years. You are not only breaking a habit. You are breaking an identity that was built around survival. You are stepping out of a role that once protected you from rejection, even while it slowly separated you from your own life. And there is grief in that. Grief for the times you smiled while aching. Grief for the words you swallowed. Grief for the younger version of you who believed love had to be earned by being useful, agreeable, and undemanding. But here is the truth your mask never wanted you to know. The people who genuinely love you do not need you to disappear in order to stay. The turning point is not when you suddenly become fearless. It begins much more quietly. It begins when you notice the moment you are about to abandon yourself. The pause before you say yes. The tension before you apologize. The way your body tightens when someone expects you to be available. The small inner voice that whispers, "I don't want this," right before the mask answers, "Of course, no problem." That pause is sacred. Because inside that pause, the real you is still alive. You do not have to hate the mask. For a long time, it protected you. It helped you survive rooms where your honesty was not welcome. It helped you stay connected to people who may not have known how to love your full truth. But what once protected you can eventually imprison you. And maturity begins when you can say, I understand why I became this way, but I no longer want to live as a performance. You begin to ask different questions. Not, will they be upset? But, am I betraying myself to prevent their discomfort? Not, how do I make them like me again? But, what part of me am I about to silence in order to be accepted? Not, is this going to disappoint them? But, why does their disappointment feel more important than my truth? The turning point begins when you stop asking, will they still like me? And start asking, am I still here? Because every time you choose honesty over automatic pleasing, you return to yourself a little more. At first, it may feel unfamiliar, even unsafe. But that does not mean it is wrong. It means you are leaving the old prison slowly enough for your soul to recognize freedom without mistaking it for danger. And this is where the mask starts to loosen. And once the mask begins to loosen, something uncomfortable happens. You start disappointing people. Not because you have become cold. Not because you have stopped caring. Not because your heart has hardened. But because the version of you they were used to was built around never making them uncomfortable. So when you say no, they may call you distant. When you stop over-explaining, they may call you arrogant. When you stop rescuing the mood of every room, they may call you selfish. When you finally speak honestly, they may act as if honesty is an attack. And this is where you must learn a painful truth. Some people were not attached to your soul. They were attached to your compliance. They loved the version of you that always adjusted, always understood, always came back, always made space, always absorbed the tension so they did not have to face themselves. But a relationship that only works when you disappear is not a safe place for your truth. Learning to disappoint others without destroying yourself is one of the deepest signs that you are returning to your identity. You can care about someone and still refuse to betray yourself. You can love someone and still have limits. You can be kind and still say, that does not work for me. You can be compassionate and still stop carrying emotions that are not yours to carry. Some people will only love the version of you that never chooses itself. Let them meet the real one. And if you have lived this, write in the comments, I choose myself now. Maybe your words will reach someone who is still apologizing for having a voice. Maybe they will remind another person that they are not alone in this awakening. Because choosing yourself is not the end of love. It is the end of abandoning yourself to be loved. Real kindness does not require you to disappear. This may be one of the most important truths you will ever reclaim. Because for a long time, you may have confused goodness with availability. You may have believed that being loving meant being endlessly understanding, endlessly patient, endlessly reachable, endlessly willing to adjust yourself around everyone else's wounds. But that is not love. That is self-erasure dressed as virtue. Real kindness has a spine. Real compassion has boundaries. Real love does not ask you to betray your own soul in order to prove that your heart is good. You can be gentle without being submissive. You can be generous without becoming empty. You can forgive someone without giving them unlimited access to you. You can understand why someone behaves the way they do, and still decide that their behavior is not safe for your peace. This is the beginning of a new identity. Not the masked self that performs calmness while resentment grows underneath. Not the pleasing self that smiles while your inner world is begging to be heard. Not the version of you that measures your worth by how little trouble you cause. But the self that can stand in a room and remain present. The self that can feel someone's disappointment without immediately rushing to repair it. The self that can say, I care about you, and also, I will not abandon myself for you. This is not becoming less loving. It is becoming more honest. And the more honest you become, the more your relationships begin to reveal the truth. Some will deepen because they were waiting for the real you. Others will weaken because they were only comfortable with the mask. Either way, you will finally stop mistaking acceptance for belonging. And when you stop mistaking acceptance for belonging, something inside you begins to breathe again. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, like a part of you that has been waiting behind the mask for years. You start noticing what you like, what you do not like, what drains you, what nourishes you, what feels like peace, and what only felt like peace because you were avoiding conflict. You begin to understand that your life was never meant to be a constant performance of being easy to love. You were not born to become the safest version of yourself for people who could not handle your truth. And maybe the mask will not fall all at once. Maybe you will still feel the old guilt. Maybe your voice will shake when you say no. Maybe part of you will still want to explain, soften, apologize, and return to the role that once made you feel protected. But now you know. Every time you choose truth over approval, you return. Every time you honor your limits, you return. Every time you stop begging to be accepted by abandoning yourself, you return. And the person waiting for you is not a new self. It is the self you left behind when you learned that love had to be earned. So let this be the moment you stop calling your disappearance kindness. Let this be the moment you stop confusing silence with peace. Let this be the moment you remember that you can be good, loving, and deeply human without making yourself invisible. If this video spoke to something you have lived, stay connected to this channel. Subscribe and write in the comments, "I choose myself now," so someone else can see that they are not the only one learning to come home to themselves. And in the next video, we will go deeper into what happens when you stop pleasing everyone. Because the moment you stop betraying yourself, certain people will reveal why they needed you small.